The first thing I remember is the cold, a deep metallic chill that didn't just cling to my skin, but seemed to sink straight into the marrow beneath it. No sound, no breath, no heartbeat, just cold. And then a thin sliver of white light split the darkness above me, widening into a rectangle as something like a hatch slid open without a sound. That sterile light poured over me, revealing the outline of my body strapped to a slab of brushed steel. The restraints weren't leather or cuffs. They were grown, like ribs of pale metal rising from the table itself. I tried to move. I couldn't even twitch. The light overhead flickered. Not a mechanical flicker, but something that felt aware, as if the illumination itself was adjusting its focus. My breath formed a thin cloud in the frigid air. But the cold wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing I wasn't breathing on my own. Something was helping me, forcing a rhythm through my lungs with a soft mechanical pulse below the table. As my eyes adjusted, a faint vibration thrummed beneath my spine. The slab wasn't resting on the floor. It was suspended slightly, humming with energy that tingled against my bones. And beyond the slab, past the sterile white glow, the room stretched into an enormous cylindrical chamber lined with pods identical to mine. Some were empty, some held shapes. Some held shapes that didn't look human anymore. A distorted reflection appeared on the polished steel arch above me. My own face, at least I thought it was mine, looked back at me with pupils dilated to the size of coins and skin drained of all color. But the reflection was warped, stretched, bending at angles that made my features look subtly wrong, as though the room wasn't built for human perspective. Then something moved. To my left, about 3 pods down, a figure shifted under its restraints. A hoarse breath scraped from their throat. I tried to call out, but the air tube feeding into my mouth prevented anything more than a muffled groan. The figure didn't respond. Their head twitched in small, frantic motions. Through the dim light, I saw why. They didn't have a jaw. Their lower face was a scaffolding of metal rods and vascular tubes, pulsing faintly. Panic cut through the fog in my mind. I'd been abducted, and this wasn't the kind of lab where anyone survived. A tremor passed through the chamber, subtle, like a heartbeat. Not of a machine, not of the ship, of something alive. The curved walls shivered with that pulse, a faint ripple moving along their metallic surface as though the structure were made not of steel, but of some kind of hardened tissue. The restraints retracted with a slow, deliberate motion. Thin strands of metallic bone slid back into the slab, freeing my limbs one at a time. I gasped when my chest expanded on its own. The tube detached itself and coiled back into the table like a living thing retreating into its nest. My legs were too weak to hold my weight. I collapsed to the freezing floor, catching myself on hands that trembled violently. The air tasted like antiseptic and copper, each breath scraping through lungs that felt artificially inflated. Above me, along the curved ceiling, a row of lights ignited one after another, illuminating a pathway. Not welcoming, not accidental, a directive. I wasn't just being released, I was being guided. A whispering sound drifted from behind me, soft, dry, rhythmic. I turned slowly. It was coming from one of the occupied pods. The shape inside convulsed under a translucent membrane stretched tight across metal plating and bone. The whispering grew. Not words, not meaning, just breath. Someone trying to speak through lungs not made for speech. I staggered toward the illuminated path. My bare feet slapped the cold surface. The floor vibrated with faint pulses that moved in waves, as though transferring information beneath my skin. The corridor beyond the chamber stretched into a metallic tunnel whose walls faintly pulsed like a slow, sleeping heartbeat. Thin cables snaked along the ceiling, shifting gently as though responding to my movement. The sterile architecture felt both ancient and advanced. Smooth surfaces with no seams, no bolts, no welds. Everything looked molded from a single piece of metallic tissue. As I walked, lights activated overhead in perfect synchronization. The ship was watching me. No, studying me. A low chime echoed from behind. Then a mechanical hiss. I ran. The corridor seemed endless, bending subtly, curving in ways that disoriented my sense of direction. The air grew colder. Frost formed in thin fractal patterns along the walls. Something heavy clanged on the metal behind me. I didn't turn to look. I didn't want to see another failed experiment crawling free of its restraints. Eventually, the corridor opened into a chamber shaped like a hollow sphere. In the center hovered a floating lattice of metallic strands forming a suspended orb. A projection blinked to life within it, grainy, distorted, like an old video log. A human face appeared, eyes sunken, skin stretched tight. The voice trembled. "If you're seeing this, you weren't meant to wake up yet." The recording crackled. "They've been doing this for 2,000 years. My breath stopped. Cloning us, studying us, testing us. Humanity isn't evolving naturally. They're guiding every step. Another distortion. Screaming behind him, his voice rose to a shaking whisper. They started our wars. The recording cut to black, and behind me, something enormous exhaled. The breath behind me was too deep to belong to anything human. I turned slowly, every muscle stiff with the kind of fear that makes your body feel borrowed. The spherical chamber's curved wall had opened along a seam that hadn't been visible a moment before. Beyond it lay a narrow passage, darker than the rest of the ship, like the inside of a vein. Something moved within that darkness. The lights embedded in the floor brightened around my feet, then dimmed a few meters out, as if inviting me forward while refusing to reveal what waited further down. A faint metallic scent drifted from the new corridor, sharper than the sterile air of the lab, like heated circuitry and dried blood. The recording orb behind me flickered back to life for a second, displaying a different image now. Earth, seen from orbit. The continents were familiar, but the colors were wrong. Pale bands of light in the atmosphere forming geometric patterns instead of natural cloud formations. Underneath, in a language I recognized as English, but rendered in unnervingly perfect, static text, were 3 words: Mothership Zeta operations. As I stared, new lines appeared beneath the first, listing dates. They started centuries ago. Each line glowed in a cold blue tone. First global conflict analysis, 1914, nuclear escalation response, 1945, proxy war pattern tests, 1950, 1991, resource collapse simulations, 2008, 2039. The dates just kept going. The recording voice, whoever he had been, overlapped the text in a crackling echo. They provoke us, they watch, they catalogue which variables make us destroy each other faster. I backed away from the orb. The floor responded, lights dimming beneath my heels, brightening toward the new corridor. The ship wanted me in there. I moved slowly, one hand grazing the curved wall as I stepped into the darker passage. The surface felt colder here, the faint pulse of the ship's internal rhythms slower, as if I was walking deeper into its nervous system. The corridor was tighter, forcing my shoulders inward. Along the walls, thin black slits opened like vertical eyelids as I passed, revealing faintly glowing lenses that tracked my movement. No visible cameras, no mechanical housing, just living metal exposing sensory organs for a brief moment before sealing shut again. After a while, the passage widened and emptied into a long gallery. It was the first room I'd seen that didn't feel like a lab or a containment area. This one felt like a museum built by something that didn't understand what a museum was supposed to feel like. Rows of upright slabs made from the same smooth metal as everything else lined both sides of the gallery. Each slab was about twice my height and perfectly flat, like standing tombstones. As I approached the nearest one, its surface shivered, darkened, then bloomed into a moving image. Trenches, mud, men in uniforms I recognized from history books, World War I. The slab displayed the scene from impossible angles, like a camera roaming freely through time. Shells exploded silently. Men shouted with no sound. Bodies fell. The slab tagged the spectacle with simple labels. Human conflict, sample. 12,588. Escalation rate. Successful emotional response. Index. High. I turned to another slab. Fires consuming a city. Mushroom clouds on a black and white horizon. The text was colder here. Nuclear introduction. Scenario beta target. Response. Fear. Resignation. Submission. Result. Partial success. Further iteration required. My reflection hovered over the images, pale and shaking. A voice spoke from behind me. Low, hoarse, threaded with pain. They like the moments when we break. I spun, hands instinctively rising in a useless attempt at defense. A figure stood in the shadows between two slabs, leaning heavily on the wall. At first I thought he was wearing some kind of armored suit. Then I realized the plating on his shoulders and ribs was fused directly into flesh. Metal and scar tissue intertwined like they had grown together. His face was mostly human, though lined with exhaustion and stitched along one cheek with a seam of dark, flexible material. Where his left eye should have been, a metallic orb sat deep in the socket, its iris contracting independently of his remaining natural eye. He raised one hand, palm outward, the gesture almost peaceful. "If they wanted you dead," he rasped, "you would still be on the slab." His voice sounded like it had been forced through a broken filter. I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" He gave a small, humorless smile. "Depends who you ask. To them, I'm Series 7 human resilience. To myself, I'm still trying to remember." He stepped forward, limping slightly. As he moved, I heard faint servos adjusting within his legs, helping muscles that weren't fully organic anymore. "You just woke up, didn't you?" he asked. I nodded. "Then you're still mostly you. That doesn't last long here." He gestured around the gallery. "This is where they keep their favorite moments. Our wars, our plagues, our collapses. They replay them to study the patterns." "Why?" I asked. The word felt small in this place. His metallic eye clicked softly as it adjusted, focusing on me. "Because to them, we're not a species. We're a data set." I tried to steady my breathing. "What is this place?" His lips thinned. "You're standing in the archive wing of Mothership Zeta. It has been in orbit for longer than any of your recorded history. They come down in cycles, abductions, interventions, corrections. Sometimes they nudge a leader. Sometimes they test how we react to famine. Sometimes..." He nodded toward a slab showing tanks rolling across a frozen city street. "Sometimes they just watch what we'll do with weapons they inspired us to build." My stomach turned. "Inspired?" He gave a slight shrug, metal flexing under skin. "Messages in dreams, sudden visions to the right mind at the right time. Plans that come. To scientists fully formed, like they were always there. They plant seeds, then they measure how much blood grows." The slab nearest us shifted suddenly, the image dissolving into static before reforming into something much more recent. Satellite footage, modern cities, data overlays in an alien script I couldn't read. A countdown timer ticked in the corner, its numerals unfamiliar but its meaning unmistakable. Something big was coming. "What is that?" I asked. The man's jaw tightened. "That is the next experiment." I stepped closer. The footage zoomed in on Earth's atmosphere. Strange geometries formed in the high clouds, invisible scaffolds of energy only the ship could see. The timer ticked down slowly. He looked at me with both eyes, one human, one machine. "You're not supposed to know this," he said. "Most of us don't. We wake up, we run, we die, and they take notes. But if you're seeing the archive, it means the ship has tagged you as a variable." "What does that mean?" I whispered. "It means you're part of the final test." A low vibration passed through the gallery, deeper than before. The slabs shivered. One by one they went dark, like someone extinguishing rows of candles in a cathedral. The lights along the floor brightened, pointing toward a doorway at the far end that hadn't been there moments ago. The ship was opening a new path. My companion listened for a second, his mechanical components humming quietly. "They're moving the schedule up," he said. "Who are they?" I asked. "The aliens? Where are they?" He gave a slow, bitter laugh that ended in a cough. "Sleeping, or gone, or watching from somewhere you and I will never see. It doesn't matter. The ship remembers their orders. It doesn't need them anymore." He fixed me with an appraising look. "You want to live? You want your world to live?" "Yes," I said, without hesitation. "Then you need to reach the command bridge and shut this thing down before the next experiment begins." I stared at the distant doorway. "Can it be shut down?" I asked. He hesitated just long enough to worry me. "Everything can die," he said. "The question is how much of you it will take with it." The doorway at the far end of the gallery widened as I approached, its edges peeling back like layers of metallic tissue responding to a stimulus they recognized. The sound it made wasn't mechanical. It was disturbingly organic, a soft, moist parting, like a throat preparing to swallow. My companion, the man partially fused with machinery, followed several steps behind me, his breathing uneven, his gait unsteady. Every few steps, a servo in his leg clicked sharply, as if deciding whether it still wanted to function. "Stay close," he murmured. "The ship adjusts the rooms for new subjects." "Subjects," I echoed quietly. He didn't correct me. The hallway beyond the doorway was wider than the last, a tall, arched conduit lined with rib-like supports curving overhead. Each support thrummed faintly with the ship's internal pulse. The temperature dropped with each step, cold enough that my breath fogged in front of me. "What's through here?" I asked. He hesitated. "Failed ideas." The corridor opened abruptly into a massive rotunda, easily the size of a sports arena. My breath caught in my throat. Dozens, no, hundreds of containment chambers lined the walls in concentric rings. Each chamber was a vertical cylinder of transparent material, shot through with thin metal veins. Inside them were shapes too distorted to be called human. Some floated in clear suspension fluid, twitching weakly. Some hung limp from integrated support scaffolds, limbs elongated or fused or multiplied. Some had no faces, just smooth planes of skin with breathing slits pulsing like gills. Others still had recognizable features, but wrong in ways that tightened my chest. Extra joints, stretched torsos, eyes that blinked sideways. What is all this?" I whispered. He walked past me, staring up at the chambers with an expression that held exhaustion, regret, and something like pity. "Iterations," he said softly. "When they take someone from Earth, they don't just study them. They refine them, improve them, or try to." I swallowed hard, unable to tear my gaze from a chamber where a figure floated with 6 arms, 4 limp, 2 twitching, and a face split by a vertical seam revealing faint metallic glint beneath the skin. Why do this? Because humanity is a problem they've been trying to solve for 2,000 years. He looked at me. They want to understand why we fight, why we resist, why we dream, why we destroy ourselves, why we don't break the way they expect us to. And these things are their attempts. He nodded grimly. Versions of us with aggression dampened. versions with empathy enhanced, versions with memory reduced, versions pushed to extremes, all to map what makes the human mind fragile or unbreakable. He walked slowly between two towering cylinders. Most experiments were abandoned, but the ship keeps them alive in case the data becomes useful. Again. A sudden thud echoed from the far side of the rotunda. I flinched. "Easy," he said. "Most can't leave their chambers." The thud came again, harder. I looked toward the sound and saw one containment cylinder shaking with violent force. The figure inside hammered at the transparent shell, its silhouette blurring with motion. Something about its outline seemed familiar, too familiar. "Who is that?" I asked, unable to look away. He didn't answer. The pounding grew louder. The chamber shook. Metal veins running through the cylinder flickered with energy, trying to stabilize the integrity of the enclosure. "Tell me," I insisted. He finally exhaled, long and weary. "Some clones are made using templates from extraordinary individuals. Soldiers, scientists, leaders, people with high influence potential. Their minds are resilient." The figure slammed into the cylinder again. Fluid splashed inside. A fractured line began crawling down the transparent shell. "Sometimes," he continued, "the ship tries to recreate someone too perfectly, and the clone becomes unstable." A hairline crack sounded like a gunshot. I stepped back. "Is that—" "Yes," he said quietly. "It's you." My pulse spiked. "That's not possible. Your DNA is valuable to them. You reacted unpredictably during their historical cycles, so they attempted multiple reproductions. But the clones didn't behave as projected. Too much resistance. Too much deviation from the desired emotional pattern." I stared at the figure. It was beating its fists, my fists, against the chamber wall. Even through distortion and fluid, I could tell the movements were frantic, desperate. "What happens if it escapes?" I asked. He gave a humorless half smile. "Clones fixate on originals. They'll follow. They'll try to replace you, or kill you. Depends on their state when they wake." The crack grew longer. A second crack split off. The chamber lights flashed red. He grabbed my arm. "We need to move." "But no time." He pulled me toward a side passage just as the cylinder burst inward. The fluid inside detonated outward in a sweeping torrent, splashing across the floor like a wave of freezing gel. A shape staggered out, coughing, shrieking without sound. My clone. Its skin was pale and stretched thin, muscles trembling with barely contained mania. Its eyes, my eyes, fixed on me with an expression of pure, unfiltered need. It lurched forward. We ran. The side passage sealed behind us, just as the creature hurled itself at the door, its fists pounding hard enough to dent the metal from the other side. We sprinted down the narrowing corridor as the walls pulsed urgently, lights shifting from white to a dim, warning red. Breathless, I gasped. "Why did it look at me like that?" He didn't slow. "Because for that one, you're the missing piece." "What piece?" He looked back, at me, his mechanical eye glowing faintly. "The piece that makes you human." We reached the end of the passage. Another doorway peeled open, revealing a descending ramp lit by pale blue veins of energy. He stopped, catching his breath. "This leads to the cognitive archives. It's where they keep the recordings. Every intervention, every cycle, every manipulation. Recordings like the one I saw before." He nodded. "All of them." My stomach tightened. "So there's proof. Proof of everything they've done." "Proof," he said. "And something worse." I hesitated on the threshold. "Worse than what we've already seen." His voice dropped to a low, almost reverent whisper. "In the archives, you'll see how many times humanity has already ended." The ramp descended in a gentle curve, illuminated by streams of pale blue light flowing through the walls like luminous veins. The deeper we went, the quieter the ship became. Not silent. Silence would have been comforting. Instead, the ambient hum grew softer and more deliberate, like the ship was lowering its voice as we approached something sacred. My companion's footsteps echoed unevenly. Every few meters, his mechanical knee emitted a faint grinding noise, and he winced as though the ship's chill cut deeper for him than for me. "Are you all right?" I asked. "I'm deteriorating," he answered without looking back. "We all are. The grafts they gave us don't last. They weren't meant to. Stability isn't their goal. Data is." "How long have you been here?" He paused mid-step. For a moment, I thought he wasn't going to answer. "Long enough," he said finally. "Too long." We continued downward until the ramp opened into a vast circular chamber, far larger than the archive of wars. This space felt older, colder. The ceiling arched so high it disappeared into darkness. The only illumination came from thousands of floating crystalline nodes arranged in vertical spirals around the room. Each hovered weightlessly, glowing with a faint inner pulse. The effect was breathtaking and horrifying. The nodes didn't just light the room, they whispered, not audibly, not with words, but with impressions, flickers of emotion, flashes of memory, sensations that brushed the edge of my consciousness like ghost fingers. The ship wasn't observing us anymore. Here, it felt like it was remembering. "What is this place?" I whispered. He stepped forward, reverent despite his limp. "The cognitive archives. Every human mind they've sampled is stored here. Every abductee, every experiment, every civilization-level intervention, every war they influenced, every catastrophe they seeded." My pulse spiked. "They store minds?" "Extracts," he corrected. "Copy fragments, echoes, enough to analyze, enough to replay." I stared at the nearest node. Its glow intensified, reacting to my presence. The pulse within it shifted. And suddenly I wasn't standing in the chamber anymore. I was in a burning village. Screams in the distance, smoke blackening the sky, a mother clutching a child running past me, soldiers shouting commands, the smell of charred wood thick in the air. A sensation of terror that didn't belong to me surged through my chest like an electric shock. Then, the scene collapsed into white light. I stumbled, gasping, back into the chamber. My knees wobbled. His mechanical hand caught my arm. "Don't let them draw you in," he warned. "The nodes sense neural resonance. They show you whatever memory fragment aligns with your emotional state." He released me, breathing hard. "And they don't care if it's too much." I wiped sweat from my forehead. "Is all of this from abducted people?" "Some," he replied. "Many, but not all." "What else then?" He nodded at a distant cluster of darker nodes, so dark they seemed to absorb light. "Some are projections of futures." The implication hit like a punch. "Futures they engineered?" I asked. "Futures they tested?" His metallic eye dilated. "Futures we never saw, because we didn't survive them." A cold pressure built in my chest. "You told me humanity has already ended." "What did you mean?" He pointed at the dark cluster. "Every cycle, the ship runs global experiments, environmental collapse, viral outbreaks, resource scarcity, atmospheric ionization, nuclear exchange, artificial intelligence corruption." His voice tightened. "Some cycles wipe out humanity entirely. Some produce survivors who rebuild. All of it is recorded here. But Earth hasn't been wiped out," I said. "We're still here. We're still—" He cut me off gently. "Because you are from the surviving cycle." I shook my head. "That doesn't make sense." "It will," he said, "when you see the truth." He stepped toward a node with a deep, violet glow. "This one is from Cycle 7. "What happened in Cycle 7? He didn't answer. He touched the node. It ignited, and the world dissolved. I saw Earth from orbit, but wrong. The continents were scorched black, coastlines warped into unnatural shapes, massive impact scars glowed with lingering heat. The atmosphere shimmered with static distortions, thin and sickly. Then the vision plunged downward. Cities splintered into skeletal ruins. Towers snapped like dead branches. Streets rivers of ash. And everywhere, silence. Not the silence of abandonment, but the silence of complete biological absence. No insects, no plants, no wind, just a dead world. The image flickered. Text appeared in alien script, then translated beneath. Cycle. 7. Total extinction, variable failure, repeat study with altered parameters. My stomach twisted violently. The vision dropped me back into the chamber. I staggered, hands shaking uncontrollably. He watched me with sympathy, edged by resignation. You understand now. They killed us, I whispered. They killed humanity, over and over. Not killed. Tested, my voice cracked. That's the same thing. He didn't disagree. Lights pulsed overhead. A deeper hum vibrated through the floor, slow, deliberate, like something massive shifting within the ship's core. He glanced upward. We have to keep moving. The ship has noticed you're learning too much. Where is the command bridge? I asked. Another level down, past the Mind Forge. The term alone made my skin crawl. What is the Mind Forge? A place where memories are rewritten, identities reshaped, responses refined. His gaze darkened. It's where they make new variables when the old ones break. Has it ever rewritten you? I asked softly. He hesitated, then nodded once. How many times? He swallowed hard, the metal under his throat shifting with the motion. I don't know anymore. A heavy silence stretched between us. Then, a sharp metallic scream echoed through the archives. The sound wasn't mechanical. It was organic, raw, wounded. My blood ran cold. What was that? His face drained of color. Your clone, he whispered. It found a way in. The nodes around us flickered with agitation. Shadows darted along the upper balconies. Somewhere above, something moved with frantic, lunging motions. He grabbed my arm with real urgency now. We need to leave, right now. Another scream tore through the chamber, closer this time. Too close. The Mind Forge is our only way forward, he said. But once we enter, the ship will try to rewrite you. My heart lurched. Rewrite me how? He looked at me with both eyes. One human, one machine, both afraid. Into whatever it needs next. The entrance to the Mind Forge wasn't a doorway. It was an aperture, an iris of metallic petals that curled open as we approached. Each segment bending outward with the silent grace of a mechanical flower blooming underwater. Beyond it lay a descending shaft bathed in shifting white light. The walls were smooth and curved, pulsing with faint illumination, like the inside of a translucent organ. My companion, his breath ragged, his steps uneven, paused at the threshold. Once we enter, he warned, the ship will try to make you part of its system. My stomach tightened. What does that mean? It will take what you are, he said softly, and test what you could be. I glanced back toward the cognitive archives. The metallic scream echoed again, closer, followed by the pounding of frantic limbs on resonant surfaces. My clone was still hunting. There was no time to hesitate. We stepped inside. The moment we crossed the threshold, gravity shifted. My stomach lurched upward as the floor tilted beneath us, and for several seconds I felt weightless. Then my feet touched solid ground again, though the ground wasn't what it seemed. A translucent layer of energy formed each step just before my foot landed, dissolving behind me with a faint ripple. This place adapts, he said. It makes a path only for those it's evaluating. The corridor narrowed as we descended deeper. The air changed, growing warmer, thicker, carrying the faint metallic tang of oxygenated blood. Lines of light coursed along the walls in branching patterns. Neural pathways, I realized. This entire place was built like a brain. The ship didn't house a mind. The ship was a mind. As we reached the bottom of the shaft, the corridor opened into a spherical chamber. The floor consisted of interlocking plates that shifted and reformed like living puzzle pieces. Suspended above the center of the room was a colossal crystalline construct, shaped like a fractured helix, slowly rotating on an invisible axis, the Mind Forge. Each shard of the helix glowed with different colors, flickering rapidly like synaptic firing. "What does it do?" I asked. Instead of answering, he pointed to the floor. A pathway lit up at my feet, extending forward to the base of the hovering construct. "It wants you." My pulse hammered. "Why me?" "Because you woke up on your own," he said. "Most humans are awakened deliberately, at controlled intervals. You weren't. The ship didn't expect your mind to resist sedation. It didn't predict you." He took a step away from me. I frowned. "Where are you going?" "I can't stand too close," he said. "The forge might try to overwrite what's left of me." A flicker of fear crossed his mismatched eyes. "And I can't afford to lose myself again." I nodded, throat tight, and stepped onto the path. Immediately the Mind Forge responded. Light flared, sound vanished. The world dissolved. I was standing in my childhood home. The hallway looked exactly as I remembered. Faded wallpaper, the wooden banister with a crack near the base, the smell of lemon cleaner lingering in the air. For a moment, my breath caught in my throat. "How does it know this?" I whispered. Then something tugged at the edge of the scene. A distortion. The hallway flickered like a glitched video. A door at the far end opened by itself, revealing a blinding white room beyond. I stepped cautiously toward it. As I crossed the threshold, the scene changed again. Now I stood in a hospital corridor, fluorescent lights humming overhead, nurses passing with hurried steps. My chest tightened. I knew this memory. I'd walked this hallway the night my father died, only this time the hospital beds were empty, and the nurses had no faces. "What is this?" I asked aloud. The faceless figures turned toward me in unison. Their blank features rippled, pulling into impressions of mouths that never fully formed. Their heads tilted at identical angles. Then a whispering chorus filled the air, voices layered over one another, speaking in tones that sounded like my own thoughts spoken back at me. Observe, measure, alter. The hospital walls peeled away like paper, exposing a vast metallic structure behind them. The illusion disintegrated piece by piece until I stood once more inside the Mind Forge chamber, but the forge was no longer dormant. It had descended, lowering itself until the crystalline helix hovered only a few feet above my head. Shards of light circled me, scanning, dissecting, cataloging. Then, a projection formed around me, a battlefield, explosions silently blossoming in the distance, men shouting without sound. I recognized the scene. It was one of the slabs from the Archive of Wars. Only now, I was standing inside it. The forge was showing me the past, and then it rewound. The battlefield reversed like a tape spinning backward. Soldiers rose from the dirt. Flames retreated into their sources. Smoke collapsed into still air. And then, the scene shifted into a different war, then another, and another. Thousands of moments of human brutality played out around me in rapid succession, compressed into a torrent of imagery meant to overwhelm, to probe my reactions, to see how my mind processed fear, grief, anger, helplessness. "Stop!" I gasped. The forge did not stop. The scenes changed again, no longer past, but future. Cities burning under geometric skies, people running from invisible threats, entire regions collapsing into dust, mass migrations, collapse, regrowth, collapse again, cycle after cycle, each one ending with humanity extinguished in a different way. I fell to my knees, clutching my head. "Why are you showing me this?" I shouted. The chorus of voices returned, calm, emotionless. Evaluate, analyze, integrate. The helix brightened with a blinding white pulse, and the hospital corridor returned. But now with one crucial difference. My father was standing at the far end, alive. He raised a hand toward me. His voice was soft. "Stay here. You don't need to fight anymore." Tears blurred my vision. "You're not real." "Does that matter?" he asked gently. "If staying means the pain ends." Behind me, I heard my companion shouting my name, but his voice was distant, warped, barely breaking through. The forge pressed in. My father stepped closer, warm and alive in a way he hadn't been for years. The forge was testing my vulnerability, testing what would break me. "What do you choose?" the voices whispered. My father extended his hand again, and I reached, not for him but for the truth forming painfully in my mind. "I choose reality," I said. The world shattered. Every illusion collapsed into a storm of white light. The helix recoiled violently, its shards flickering with dissonant color. Alarms, real ones, blared through the chamber. My companion rushed to my side. "You resisted," he said, awe in his voice. "Nobody resists the forge." The helix cracked, not metaphorically, literally. A fracture line ran through its crystalline structure, pulsing with unstable energy. "What's happening?" I asked. "You broke its evaluation cycle," he said, "and now the ship doesn't know what you are." The helix split further with a deafening crack. Above us, emergency conduits flared to life. The ship was waking up, and it was afraid of me. The mind forge wasn't just malfunctioning, it was panicking. The crystalline helix above us split down its center with a sound like grinding ice. Shards of luminous material spiraled outward, flickering through colors too alien to name. The chamber lights dimmed, then surged brighter, then dimmed again, as if the entire room were struggling to breathe. The floor vibrated beneath my feet with rapid, jittery pulses, nothing like the slow, steady heartbeat I'd felt earlier in the ship. This was erratic, distressed, frantic. My companion grabbed my shoulder, pulling me away from the collapsing helix. "You broke the evaluation," he said over the rising hum. "The ship is recalibrating. It's trying to figure out how you resisted the illusion." The hum deepened into a long, resonant tone that rattled my ribs. Then the walls began to move. They didn't shift mechanically, they rippled, their metallic surfaces undulating like liquid mercury caught in an earthquake. Shapes formed on them, ghost-like impressions of faces pressing outward from inside the metal. Mouths opened as if trying to scream, but no sound emerged. "The ship is losing structure," he murmured. "It doesn't understand you. You're an anomaly, and anomalies threaten its directive." "What directive?" I demanded. "To study us," he said, backing toward the exit. "To shape us, to control the outcomes of their simulations. If something breaks its models, it tries to correct it." His mechanical eye tightened its aperture. "And if it can't correct it?" The floor cracked. A fissure opened between us, glowing with blinding white energy. I stumbled backward, nearly falling. "It eliminates it," he finished grimly. The helix above emitted one final pulse, an expanding wave of light that swept across the chamber. When it hit me, my vision blurred, and for a moment, I felt my memories being tugged at, sifted through, rearranged like pages of a book being shuffled. "No!" I shouted, forcing my thoughts into focus. The wave hesitated, then broke around me like water smashing against rock. My companion stared in disbelief. "You resisted again." I don't know how, I gasped. I do, he swallowed. You're still whole, still human. They haven't rewritten you even once. That makes you unpredictable, dangerous. To the ship, I asked. He nodded. It needs us to follow patterns. It needs us to break in certain ways. But you're not breaking the way it expects. The chamber ceiling split open, revealing a towering conduit above us. From it descended dozens of thin metallic tendrils, like wires, but alive. They reached toward me in twitching, hesitant motions. The ship was trying to connect to me, to integrate me. No, my companion growled, pulling me aside. Not him, not this one. The tendrils froze mid-air. Then all at once they snapped toward us with terrifying speed. We ran for the exit. As we sprinted across the unstable floor, the fissures widened, emitting harsh white light that cast our shadows into long, flickering shapes. Tendrils whipped past us, slashing into the ground and walls, leaving glowing scars. The iris-like aperture we entered through began sealing, metal petals curling inward. "Hurry!" he shouted. I dove through the shrinking gap just as the petals snapped shut behind me, cutting off the tendrils with a burst of sparks. We hit the floor hard in the corridor outside. For a moment, the ship fell completely silent. No rumble, no heartbeat, no vibration. Nothing. Then, a deep tone reverberated through the corridor. The lights flickered. My companion's cybernetic eye brightened with a red warning glow. "It's initiating a lockdown," he said. "We're not safe here anymore." "Can it trap us?" I asked. "It can do worse." The floor beneath our feet began sliding sideways, forming a narrow channel. Panels in the walls peeled back like mechanical eyelids, revealing clusters of spherical drones nestled within alcoves. Their lenses glowed to life one by one. My companion's voice dropped. "Run!" We sprinted as the drones detached from their alcoves and drifted into the corridor, their movements unnervingly smooth. They emitted scanning beams that swept in sweeping arcs across the floor and walls. Where the beams touched metal, the surface blistered. Where they touched glass, it melted. Where they touched a section of floor behind us, the metal dissolved in a swirling cloud of shimmering particles. "Disintegration!" my companion shouted. "Keep moving!" We rounded a bend, just as three beams crossed paths behind us, carving deep gouges into the wall that pulsed like open wounds. The hallway forked ahead. "Left!" he yelled. We veered left, just as a swarm of drones converged on the right passage, blocking it entirely. Their beams slashed through the air, slicing stray fragments of metal that rained like hail. The left path narrowed, forcing us shoulder to shoulder. In the distance, a circular door began to open, a door we hadn't triggered. "It's directing us," I said breathlessly. "It wants you isolated," he said. "I won't let it." We reached the doorway and spilled into another chamber, this one smaller, dimly lit, with high walls covered in thin tubes filled with pulsing liquid. The tubes pulsed with a rhythm I recognized immediately, the heartbeat of the ship. My companion froze at the threshold, fear flickering across his half-metal face. "No," he whispered. "Not this room." "What is it?" I asked. He looked at me with something I hadn't seen from him before. Shame. "This is where they made me." I took a slow breath. "Then maybe there's something here we can use." He shook his head violently. "No. This place is where they overwrite us, where they break us. I barely escaped last time." He swallowed hard. "And I didn't escape whole." The heartbeat in the tubes grew louder, faster. A panel on the opposite wall slid open. A silhouette stepped out. My blood went cold. It wasn't my clone. It wasn't a machine. It was a human, fully human, dressed in a tattered medical jumpsuit, pale and trembling, eyes wide with confusion and terror. "Where am I?" she whispered. My companion stared, stunned. They're waking subjects early. That's not protocol." Behind us, the drones swarmed outside the doorway, their lenses searching. The ship had forced us into a room where someone had just been born into the nightmare I'd already walked through. And then, the realization hit me like a blow. The ship wasn't trying to kill us. It was trying to replace us. The woman staggered into the chamber, her knees buckling as she clutched the wall for support. Her medical jumpsuit hung loosely on her thin frame, and pale surgical scars ran along her collarbone in branching lines, fresh incisions, still reddened. She blinked at us, dazed, eyes moving sluggishly as though her brain was still waking up. "Please," she whispered. Someone tell me what's happening." My companion took a cautious step toward her, but something in the way his mechanical eye narrowed told me he was already analyzing her, searching for signs only he'd recognize. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice steady but guarded. She opened her mouth, hesitated, then tried again. I don't know." That answer sent a cold ripple through my chest. He exhaled slowly. Not surprising. Identity is usually the last thing they restore. She looked between us, trembling. "Restore? What does that mean? Am I sick?" I exchanged a glance with him. He shook his head. This wasn't a random survivor the ship had forgotten to sedate. This was intentional. The ship had activated her. The drones outside the chamber repositioned, blocking the exit with a floating barricade of spherical bodies. Their lenses glowed brighter, sweeping the doorway like watchdogs. They weren't attacking. They were containing. Her breathing quickened as she realized we were trapped. "Please," she repeated. "I don't understand. Where am I?" "You're in orbit above Earth," I said gently, "aboard something called Mothership Zeta." She stared at me like I'd told her she was underwater. He stepped beside me. "They took you. Same as they took me. Same as they took him." He nodded in my direction. "You were part of an experiment." Her face crumpled. "I don't remember anything, not even my family. Do I have one? Did someone send you to find me?" The question gutted me. "No one's coming," he said softly. "But we're trying to shut this thing down. We can help you, if you can walk." She swallowed hard. "I can walk." She straightened, though her legs trembled. I gestured toward the sealed doorway. "We need a way past those drones." He studied the tubes along the walls, the ones carrying the ship's pulsing lifeblood, and something dark crossed his features. "There is a way," he said, "but it'll get the ship's attention." "You mean more than it already has?" I asked. "This isn't aggression," he said. "It's strategy. It's herding." "Herding us where?" He nodded toward the woman. "Toward her." I froze. "You think the ship wants her to join us?" "No," he said softly. "I think the ship wants you to protect her." A chill crept down my spine. "Why me?" "Because you resisted the forge," he said. "Because you're unpredictable. Because the ship wants to see what you do when you're given a variable you weren't expecting." I looked at her. She stared back, terrified, fragile, and undeniably human. A perfect test subject. The realization twisted my stomach. "This is another experiment." "Yes, and we're the variables." "All three of us," he said. Before I could respond, the heartbeat in the tubes intensified, throbbing harder, faster, until the entire room vibrated with it. The tubes brightened, flooding the chamber with pale blue light. The drones drifted back slightly, repositioning as the walls around us began to peel open, revealing new interior structures. "It's activating the cradle," he whispered. "The what?" He pointed at a circular platform rising from the floor near the center of the room. Thin metal tendrils unfurled from its surface like skeletal fingers. "That's where they rewrite new subjects," he said. "Where they form them into whatever the next experiment requires." I stepped in front of the woman instinctively. The tendrils reacted, twitching toward us. He shouted, "Don't let them touch you!" I grabbed her arm and pulled her back as the tendrils snapped forward, missing us by inches. The metal writhed like living wire, seeking connection points on her skin. "It wants to graft her," he said. "Integrate her." She cried out, pressing against the wall. "No, I don't want that. Please, don't let it touch me." "We won't," I said. But the room had other plans. Panels in the ceiling slid open, releasing a cluster of smaller drones, thin, insect-like machines with needle-tipped appendages. They descended in a gentle, floating pattern, more curious than hostile, their bodies emitting soft, scanning pulses. They were approaching her. He shouted, "We need to disrupt the cradle's primary conduit." "Where is it?" He pointed to a wide column on the far side of the chamber, its surface alive with swirling patterns of light. "That's feeding the grafting system. If you can disrupt it, the tendrils will retract." "You mean destroy it?" "You won't destroy it," he said grimly, "but you'll hurt the ship, and hurting it will force a reaction." I pulled her behind me. "Stay close, don't touch anything." She nodded, trembling. We moved toward the column as the drones descended faster now, shifting from curiosity to urgency. Their needles glinted under the blue light. One swooped toward her. I swung my arm instinctively and batted it aside. It spun out, righted itself, and targeted me instead. Another 3 closed in around her. The tendrils from the cradle lunged. The ship was escalating. I shoved her toward him. "Protect her!" He dragged her behind a bank of pulsing tubes while I ran for the column. The drones followed, their beams flicking dangerously close to my skin. I felt one brush my shoulder. It stung sharply, like a hot wire grazing flesh. The column's surface rippled as I approached, sensing my movement. Inside it, I saw streams of liquid light, thoughts, commands, instructions. I slammed my hand against it. Nothing happened. I hit it harder. A jolt of electricity shot up my arm, throwing me backward. I landed hard on the metal floor, dazed. The tendrils surged toward her again, inches away. She screamed. And then, he stepped between her and the tendrils, taking the brunt of the strike. Metal pierced into the graft points along his torso, and he convulsed violently as the ship's systems latched onto him. The tubes in the walls pulsed frantically, as though the ship was trying to stabilize the connection. He shouted through gritted teeth, "Hit the column now, while it's distracted." I got to my feet, lunged for the column, and slammed both fists into it with everything I had. The lights inside flickered. The ship groaned, a deep, agonizing sound that reverberated through the chamber. The tendrils spasmed. The drones scattered, and the connection holding him broke. He collapsed to the floor, shaking. The woman ran to his side. "Are you okay? Please, stay with us." He lifted his head, weakly. It's not done. It's only repositioning. It's adapting." I knelt beside them. "What does that mean?" He looked at me with a haunted expression. "It means we triggered the next phase of the experiment." The chamber lights dimmed all at once, plunging us into a hazy, blue-tinted darkness. The tubes along the walls flickered erratically, their rhythmic pulse disrupted. The ship wasn't just reacting, it was rethinking. My companion lay on the floor, his mechanical grafts twitching with electrical aftershocks, skin pale, breath shallow. The woman knelt beside him, pressing her hand gently against his shoulder. "What did it do to you?" she asked, voice trembling. He gave a strained exhale. "It tried to overwrite me again, same as before. But it failed. I'm not as compatible as I used to be." His metallic eye flickered, glitching. I scanned the chamber. The drones had retreated. The tendrils were retracted, coiled flat against the cradle platform like metallic vines awaiting new instructions. But the quiet felt wrong, as if the ship were holding its breath. "Is it regrouping?" I asked. "No," he said weakly. "It's observing, waiting. That's how every phase begins." Every phase of what? The woman whispered. He turned his gaze to me. The global experiment. The one it's been preparing for centuries. My stomach tightened. Tell me. He took a pained breath. Each experiment observes humanity from afar, nudges key events, adjusts variables, like you've seen. But the ship hasn't run a full-scale reset in more than 200 years. It's overdue. And now? Now, he said darkly. It's accelerating the schedule. Because of you. I flinched. What did I do? You resisted, he said. You broke its illusions. You cracked the forge. You created uncertainty, and the ship responds to uncertainty with escalation. The walls shuddered. A deep, resonant tone vibrated through the air, low at first, then rising until it felt like the entire room was humming with anticipation. The woman clutched my arm. What's happening? He pushed himself upright with visible effort. It's deploying parameters, running scenarios, deciding how to push us to the breaking point. Us, I asked. All three of us, he said. It will choose dynamics to test. Pressure points, conflict triggers, emotional thresholds. I felt ice crawl along my spine. It wants to see how we behave. Exactly, he nodded grimly. The next phase always starts by creating a closed ecosystem. It seals subjects in, forces them into high-stress conditions, observes everything. That's what this room is? An ecosystem? No, he said. This room is only the threshold. Then the lights went out completely. For a moment, nothing. Total darkness. Then a faint glow returned, but the chamber had changed. Radically. The walls were farther away. The ceiling was higher. The tubes had vanished, replaced by towering metallic pillars etched with geometric symbols. The air felt heavier, denser. The floor had transformed into a mesh-like lattice that hummed beneath our feet. The ship had reconfigured the environment around us. The woman whispered, "It's a different room." "No," he said. "It's the same room, rebuilt, reassigned." I looked up. Above us, a massive spherical structure hovered silently, like a floating planet of metal, covered in swirling patterns of light. "What is that?" I breathed. "The Overseer node," he said. "It controls localized experiments. Every movement we make, every decision, every reaction, recorded and analyzed in real time." The woman's voice trembled. "Why us?" "Because," he said with another pained breath, "we represent variables the ship doesn't understand." He pointed weakly at me. "You resisted their psychological intrusion." He gestured toward the woman. "She is newly awakened, an undefined state, ideal for contrast." "And me?" He tapped his damaged graphs. "A destabilized hybrid, half machine, half human, partially overwritten, partially intact." "We're a comparison set," I murmured. "A triangulation model," he said, "to map the boundaries of human adaptability." A loud metallic snap echoed through the chamber. The Overseer node split open along its equator. A beam of pale white light shot down from it, striking the center of the room. The mesh floor glowed, forming a pattern, a circle divided into 3 equal sections. "Positions," he rasped. "It wants us in positions." "No," the woman whispered, stepping behind me. "I'm not going anywhere near that." Neither was I. "We're not participating," I said. He shook his head. "You don't get to choose. That's the point." The floor trembled. Suddenly, 3 tall, slender drones emerged from the shadows, nothing like the spherical disintegration drones before. These were humanoid in shape, though impossibly thin, with elongated limbs that ended in jointed clusters of metal digits. They moved with uncanny grace, forming a triangle around us. "Separation drones," he muttered. "Not lethal. Their job is to herd us into the positions." One stepped toward the woman, its head elongated, a single vertical lens pulsing rhythmically, reading her vitals, fear, posture. "Stay behind me," I said. The drone advanced anyway. I stepped into its path. It didn't attack. It simply pivoted and attempted to step around me. I blocked it again. This time it pushed, gently but firmly, like a parent guiding a stumbling child. I held my ground. The overseer node overhead flickered. He cried out, "Stop resisting! You'll..." But it was too late. The drone gripping her arm didn't push harder. It jerked violently. The sudden force sent her spiraling backward. She hit the ground with a cry of pain, clutching her wrist. My anger surged. The overseer node brightened, pulse quickening, analyzing the emotional spike. "It's observing aggression," he warned. "It wants to see how you respond to perceived threats. If you escalate, it escalates." I glared at the drone. The woman struggled to her knees. "Please, don't let it take me." Her fear amplified something inside me, something the ship hadn't predicted. I took a slow breath and stepped toward the drone, not in attack, but in defiance. "No," I said quietly. "You don't get to choose our roles." The ship's hum hesitated. The drone paused. The overseer's light flickered. He stared at me like I'd just broken the rules of physics. "You're rewriting the scenario," he whispered. "That shouldn't be possible." A second drone stepped forward now, faster. I braced myself, but then the chamber floor began splitting into segments, rotating like gears in a colossal machine. The three marked sections shifted, rising into isolated platforms. The drones retreated suddenly. The overseer retrieved its beam. He looked up in horror. "It's forcing a fallback scenario," he said. "The ship has abandoned subtlety." "What does that mean?" "It means," he whispered, "it's initiating a conflict test." The platforms locked into place. A dividing wall rose between each of us. We were being separated. The woman screamed as the metal partitions cut her off from view. My companions shouted my name, and overhead, the overseer node spoke in a chorus of layered voices, the same voices from the forge. Evaluate, contrast, compete. The conflict test had begun, and only one of us was meant to survive it. The walls slammed upward around each platform with a metallic finality that echoed through the chamber like a sentence being passed. The floor vibrated beneath my feet. Overhead, the overseer node's swirling lights intensified, reorganizing into geometric spirals that pulsed in a rhythmic cadence. The ship wasn't hiding its intentions anymore. This was a test, a trial, an experiment in controlled conflict. "Stay calm!" My companion's voice echoed faintly through the metal barrier, distorted and distant. "Whatever happens, don't give it what it wants." "What does it want?" I shouted back, heart hammering. His answer arrived clipped, strained. "It wants to see if you'll kill." My stomach dropped. The metal floor beneath me heated faintly, as thin cracks formed in the circular platform, releasing coils of cold mist. Patterns etched themselves into the metal, concentric rings of alien symbols glowing faint blue. The platform was activating. A soft chime sounded above me. Evaluation parameters engaged, emotional thresholds adjusting, variable volatility rising. The overseer's voice was the same emotionless chorus I'd heard in the Mindforge, hundreds of overlapping tones speaking as one. Conflict required. Outcome determines next phase. "No," I muttered. "I'm not playing your game." I stepped toward the nearest barrier and pushed. The metal didn't budge. I hit it harder. Nothing. The surface absorbed the force silently, as though recording it. The ship was taking notes. The woman's panicked voice carried from the platform beside mine. "Please, somebody help me. I don't want to do this. I don't even know who I am." Her terror shot straight through my chest. I punched the barrier again. Still nothing. Then, a small slit opened at my feet. A compartment. Inside it lay an object. A sleek metallic rod, no thicker than a finger, its surface etched with glowing runes. A weapon. or something the ship wanted me to think was a weapon. "No," I whispered. "Not a chance." The overseer responded instantly. "Variable non-compliant. Introduce incentive." A piercing scream tore through the chamber. Hers. High, sharp, helpless. I slammed against the barrier. "What's happening? What did you do to her?" Her cries dissolved into frantic sobbing. Something grabbed me. "Something's in here." My companion shouted. "They've released constructs, illusion-based or physical. We can't know. It's forcing fear reactions. It wants you to save her. It wants you to act." "By fighting," I yelled. "Yes," he barked back. "By escalating. That's the conflict test. It pressures each variable differently until someone breaks, until someone becomes the aggressor." I stared down at the metallic rod. The symbols pulsed, beckoning, inviting. I kicked it away. It skittered across the metal floor. The overseer's lights flickered. Unpredictable. Response detected. Escalation required. The walls around my platform shifted, the metal rippling like liquid. A humanoid shape pressed outward, forming through the surface as if being extruded from molten steel. Oh God. It stepped free, seamless and silent. A perfect faceless silhouette of polished metal, humanoid in outline, but disturbingly featureless. Its head tilted toward me. Assessment. Then it began walking. Slow, deliberate steps, not charging, studying, like the ship wanted to see how I'd react to something advancing, not attacking, just approaching. "Back off," I warned. It didn't. It raised one hand and extended a single finger, pointing at the rod I'd kicked aside. "No," I said firmly. It advanced anyway. Behind the walls, the woman shrieked again. My companion's voice rose with urgency. "Don't let it touch you. These constructs adapt to your reactions. If you show fear, they'll corner you. If you show aggression, they'll escalate the encounter." The construct kept walking. 10 feet away. 7. 5. I stepped back, heart pounding. "I'm not fighting you," I said. No response. Just slow, relentless approach. 3 feet. 2. I raised both hands. "Stop." It didn't. It reached toward me. Instinct took over. I lunged sideways, avoiding its grip by inches. The construct pivoted fast, too fast, and caught my wrist with smooth, cold fingers. My muscles seized with a jolt that wasn't electrical, but neurological. Like the ship had reached directly into my nerves, mapping my reflexes. I shouted, wrenching my arm free. The construct paused again, processing, evaluating. Then it attacked. No warning, no build-up. Just a sudden, blindingly fast strike. I dove to the floor, rolled, grabbed the metallic rod without thinking, and swung upward in a defensive arc. The rod hummed to life. A shockwave rippled outward, violent and instantaneous. The construct staggered, its chest dented inward by the force. I froze. I hadn't meant to strike. I'd meant only to defend. But the ship didn't care about my intention. I had escalated. The overseer's lights pulsed bright white. Conflict pattern engaged. Increase variable stress. The metal around the construct rippled. 2 more silhouettes pushed through the walls. My pulse spiked. 3, I gasped. My companion shouted, "Because you fought back! It's scaling the threat based on your reaction!" The constructs advanced as one. Slow at first, then faster, then sprinting. I ran to the barrier, slammed my fists against it. "Let me out! This isn't a fair test!" The wall absorbed the impact and answered, "Conflict does not require fairness, only outcome." Behind me the constructs closed in, silent, relentless. Think. Don't escalate. Don't escalate. But if I didn't defend myself, I'd die. If I defended myself, I'd reinforce the test. The ship had created a paradox, a scenario where inaction meant death and action meant compliance. My companion's voice cut through the rising panic. "Listen to me. The ship doesn't understand defiance unless it's deliberate. You need to choose a third option." "What option?" I shouted. "A response that isn't violence and isn't surrender." "What does that mean?" "It means," he said, "break the game." The constructs lunged. I raised the rod, then made a decision the ship didn't predict. I dropped it, not away from me, but toward them. The constructs froze, confused by the voluntary disarmament. The rod clattered to the floor between us. I stepped forward with open hands. "No," I said, "I'm not playing." The overseer's lights flickered violently. Variable response, illogical, scenario destabilizing. I kept walking toward the constructs, slow, steady, unthreatening. They backed up. For the first time, they backed up. Undefined behavior, model corruption detected. On the platforms beside mine, I heard the woman shouting, "What's happening? What's going on?" My companion answered with awe in his voice, "He's breaking the scenario." The overseer flickered again. Unresolved path, objective failure, and then the walls collapsed, the platforms dropped, the test dissolved. The entire chamber abruptly reconfigured into a single open space again. The constructs vanished into the floor. The overseer went dark. The woman stumbled toward me, eyes wide. How did you?" But he cut her off, staring at me with something like hope. "You rewrote the ship's behavior model," he said. "You made it incapable of predicting your actions." "Is that good?" I asked. His expression hardened. "It's catastrophic." "Why?" "Because when the ship can't control a variable," he whispered, "it tries to erase it." The floor hummed ominously. All lights in the chamber shifted to blood red. The ship had chosen its next phase. Term elimination protocol. Initiated. The lights pulsed red in a slow, deliberate pattern that felt like the beating of some colossal heart. The floor vibrated beneath our feet, deep, resonant tremors that rolled through the chamber like gathering thunder. The ship wasn't confused anymore. It had reached a conclusion, a verdict. We had broken its test. Now it would break us. My companion struggled to stand, bracing himself against a column as his mechanical grafts twitched erratically. The woman moved to support him, but he shook his head. "No, listen," he rasped. "This is the termination phase. It will collapse the entire section, seal us in, purge the variables." "How do we stop it?" I asked. "We don't stop it," he said. "We outrun it." The floor panels around the chamber began retracting in widening circles, exposing a chasm of blinding white energy beneath, a boiling ocean of radiant power, the ship's core thrumming with lethal potential. The woman gasped as a nearby panel dropped away, disintegrating into vapor. It's dissolving the floor." "It's collapsing the scenario," he said, "and forcing us toward the only remaining exit." A tunnel was forming at the far side of the chamber, a narrow passage spiraling downward as the walls reshaped themselves frantically. Beyond it, faint blue light pulsed like a beacon. "The command bridge," he said. "It's opening the path now because it expects us to die before reaching it." "Then we won't die," I said. He gave a thin, exhausted smile. "That's the spirit." We ran. The floor dropped away behind us in cascading collapses, like the ship was erasing its own architecture one breath at a time. The air grew hotter, shimmering with waves of thermal distortion. The energy beneath the disintegrating panels roared like the inside of a star. We dove into the descending tunnel just as the last intact platform fell into the core. The walls sealed behind us with a flash of red light. Darkness swallowed everything. The tunnel lit again, soft blue illumination rippling along the walls in a spiraling pattern. The temperature dropped dramatically. Frost began to creep along the curved floor, sparkling beneath our feet. I shivered. "Why is it cold now?" "The closer we get to the command bridge," he said, "the colder the ship becomes." It regulates cognitive functions by temperature. Higher reasoning areas stay at near cryogenic levels. So we're walking into its brain, I muttered. He nodded. Exactly. The woman hugged her arms. I don't want to go in there. You don't have to want to, he said softly. You just have to keep walking. The tunnel opened abruptly into a vast chamber. It was spherical, like the cognitive archives, but darker, quieter, grander. The walls were translucent, filled with slow-moving currents of glowing particles. Threads of silver light branched from every direction toward the center of the room, and at the center hung the command core. A massive sphere of polished obsidian-like metal floating weightlessly in mid-air, encased in a lattice of shifting geometric rings. Each ring rotated independently, carving luminous arcs in the air. The effect was hypnotic, alive, sentient. The ship's mind. We approached cautiously. The woman whispered, "It's beautiful." My companion's jaw tightened. "It's a cage made for worlds." As we neared the core, a holographic projection crackled to life around it. A storm of images, Earth in various states of ruin, cities collapsing, skies darkening, oceans boiling, fields turning to dust, cycle after cycle, failure after failure. Then the images shifted. Earth today, the present. Our planet hovered above the core, glowing blue, fragile, alive. A series of symbols flashed beside it. Execution metrics, probability matrices, timelines. "What is this?" I asked. "It's preparing the next global experiment," he said grimly. "The one we're trying to stop." "And if we don't?" He looked at the projection showing Earth slowly fracturing along lines of geometric energy. "It sterilizes the planet," he said softly. "Resets human history, starts again." The woman's voice trembled. "How do we shut it down?" His gaze fixed on the core. "There's only one way. We have to override the master directive." "How?" He turned to me. "By giving the ship something it can't predict, something it can't process." "Me?" He nodded. "It rejected you because you disrupt the model. That's exactly why you have to interface with it." I swallowed hard. "If I do, what happens to me?" "The ship will try to rewrite you," he said. "Maybe it succeeds, maybe it doesn't. But even if you survive, you won't be the same." The woman grabbed my arm. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't," he said. The platform beneath the core suddenly lit with a circular pattern, beckoning. The ship knew. It wanted me. I stepped forward. The woman held my other arm tightly. "Please, don't go." My voice cracked slightly. "If I don't, Earth dies." Her grip loosened slowly. "Then come back. Please come back." I walked onto the platform. The rings surrounding the core slowed, aligning into a perfect sphere. Light engulfed me. I was nowhere, and everywhere, suspended in a void of shifting patterns, each one a memory. Mine, not mine, humanity's, the ship's. Images flowed through me like currents. Wars, plagues, revolutions, births, hopes, fears, dreams. The ship's voice layered itself through the void. Human variability, unbounded. Model prediction, impossible. Directive failure. I pushed back, not with force, but with identity. "I am not your variable," I said. "I am not your data." The void trembled. Redefinition required. Override. Attempting. My memories flickered. Faces blurred. Voices dimmed. Moments slipped. "No," I said. "These are mine." The void recoiled. Unusual resistance. Concept. Free will. Contradiction. I pressed harder. "You can't control humanity because we choose. We change. We defy your patterns." The void began to fracture, and then the ship hesitated. Directive conflict. Experiment invalid. I felt the core ripping itself apart. The void ruptured in a blinding flash. I collapsed onto the chamber floor, gasping, shaking, the room swaying around me. The rings around the command core were frozen, motionless, dead. The woman rushed to my side. "Are you okay? Can you hear me?" My companion limped closer, staring up at the inert core with disbelief. "You did it," he whispered. "You ended the directive." Lights across the ship flickered, soft, fading, systems shutting down. For the first time since I awakened, the vessel felt empty, free of intent, free of observation, free of them. He sank to his knees. "We're no longer variables. The ship is just a shell now." The woman looked around the hollow chamber. "So, what happens now?" I pushed myself upright, still dizzy, still unsure where my mind ended and the ship's memory began. "We find a way home," I said quietly, "and we make sure the world knows." My companion smiled faintly, weary but proud. "No more tests," he murmured. "No more cycles." The ship around us groaned, its first sound not of purpose but of age. We headed toward the exit, the fading lights guiding our way. Earth waited below, alive, untouched, unaware of how close it had come to ending again, but no longer controlled. Humanity was free, for the first time in 2,000 years.